All right, we're with Charlie Stuckey, class of 2006. Charlie, you were part of some of the first teams that I covered here at Jefferson, and some pretty good teams back in those early to mid 2000 days with some pretty prolific offenses, and you were certainly part of that as the running back. What do you remember about piling up all those points against some of the best teams in the state?
Yeah. I remember it was the first time that Jefferson introduced the spread offense.
Yeah.
So I think my sophomore year, we were still running with a tight end or fullback at times, and then we decided, we've got a fast team with a lot of good athletes, and so we spread the field and we aired it out a lot, and that opened up a lot of running holes too. So we had an awesome offensive line, and ran a lot of pulling tackle plays, so big, fast offensive tackles that could run around the end and open up the holes for us to run through. So, I remember putting up a lot of points that year when we decided to, air it out a little bit.
And that was even a new offense at that time for college football, who was developing that spread. And I'm sure as a guy similar in stature to me, but obviously a lot more athletic and fast, but not as big of a guy, that had to be music to your ears to go, hey, we're going to spread this out and utilize our speed, and that was perfect for a guy like you.
Yeah, it was nice too to kind of hide behind the lineman a little bit and look for a hole and just cut my way through it.
What do you think made the Jaguar staff open to such a big change, kind of overhaul things under Coach Leverins? And obviously it paid a huge amount of dividends to be able to have such a prolific offense and some very good teams that made it very far in the section playoffs.
Well, Coach Leverins, was definitely open to the change, and he had the support of our offensive coordinator, Coach Lang, and Coach Sinclair was, there for the receivers too. So I think they had, some support of coaches that, were buying into that philosophy at the time, and knew that it surprised a lot of our defenders. A lot of the teams we played against weren't doing that yet, and so it was a different style of offense that they weren't prepared to stop.
What did being a Jaguar football player mean to you throughout your high school experience, Charlie? When you look back at it now, I'm sure it had played a part in shaping who you are as a person. Almost 20 years later. Yeah,
for sure. A tremendous amount of pride, from when I was here to, beyond high school. I give a lot of credit to my coaches and the experience for teaching me discipline, taught me that, you can do anything if you're willing to put in the work. So I think, it was a huge part of shaping, who I became, even beyond high school.
Who are some of the former players that you were maybe tight with back then, and hopefully that you're still in contact with as kind of the family of those times of Jefferson football?
Probably the one that I was closest with was actually our kicker, Dallas Jagila. So he and I go way back, and still keep in touch. But other than that, it was a really tight brothership of all of the senior players on that team. We spent summers together, putting in extra work outside of two-a-days. We, committed to doing extra training and conditioning programs together. Went to some passing camps, that we got to stay, overnight at St. John's to do passing leagues there, so one of the other things I remember too from those times is just being really close with my quarterback Garrett Augustine and my center Peter Jacobson. So we were the three players that were exempt from playing defense. And so when everybody else was doing the defensive drills under Coach Carlson and getting yelled at and going through tackling drills and everything. The three of us were just taking snaps and practicing handoffs and stuff. And that's because we knew that we weren't ever needed on defense. We had a strong defense, and we were just going to keep, practicing what we needed to do on offense. So,
your senior year, your team makes it all the way to the section championship at Eden Prairie. What do you remember about that game? Obviously, weren't able to get the win there, but not many Jefferson teams make it as far as you did, especially as a senior.
Yeah, I remember that night being, a very emotional night for a lot of players. It was our last game for a lot of us, I remember it was a really closer game than, we thought it would be. We all had gone into it having success throughout the season and thinking, well, let's just push through this one more game. Obviously, we came up short, but I think in the end, we gave it our best effort against a team that was, a lot bigger than we were. I think that was one of the challenges, is just being outsized, both in terms of number of players and also the size of players. But I do remember scoring a touchdown on my last carry of my career, though, which was, a great way to, go out and can kind of remember that as my last play playing football.
Any other memorable moments or stories that come to mind when you look back now that you think might be interesting to talk about?
Yeah. I remember when we played Lakeville South senior year, it was the first year that they had split up Lakeville into North and South, and North took all of the seniors, and so we thought going into this game, these are all underclassmen, this should be a good game. They were a great team that year, Lakeville South, and so we were behind most of the game, and down to the final seconds of the game, we had to attempt a Hail Mary. So I remember that play. I remember the quarterback rolling out, throwing it to the end zone, and then just the crowd erupting when, our receiver caught the Hail Mary and we won the game. So that was certainly, a memorable team event, and I think really kind of ignited a spark with the team from there on out through the rest of the season.
Were you on the field during that play?
Yeah.
Charlie, so what do you remember from your vantage point?
Yeah.
Who caught the ball? Where were you? And what happened in that aftermath of the celebration?
Yeah. I think Jake Dahman caught the ball. You can fact check me on that one. But I remember, it was my job just to block and make sure that Garrett had plenty of time to roll out to throw this thing to the end zone. But yeah, I remember, there were a couple of defenders that jumped up a little too early to try to get it, and then it just kind of fell behind them, and into our receiver's arms. So, it was quite the finish.
How did it feel to do your job on that play? You didn't catch the touchdown, but everybody has to do their job just to give yourself a chance to make something crazy happen at the end of the game. So how did it feel from that standpoint?
Yeah, that was one of the great things about playing on that team, is that, there were times, when it was my turn to, take the bulk of the work, games where I'd have a ton of carries and a lot of workload, but then there were others where, it was taking a back seat to some of the other stars on the team, and throwing the ball a little bit more. And I think that was what made, it's so hard to prepare for our team that year, is any given week, if they tried to stop the run, then we'd just pass. And if they tried to stop the pass, we would just run the ball, 20 to 30 times that game. So, it felt great no matter what my role was, because it was a real team effort, and getting the victory, as a team, was what mattered.